7-year-old man is behind bars right now, arrested in connection with a cold case from 30 years ago. Two sisters found murdered in their Houston home, and tonight police say the killer is finally in custody.
In 1984, Lillie Kennedy and her sister Yleen Kennedy shared a modest house that was painted blue and white and was located in the Heights neighborhood of Houston, Texas. Yleen, aged 33, was employed as an interior decorator, and she specialized in stained glass artwork for the home. In addition to that, she sold antique jewelry and vintage apparel. Lillie, then 23 years old, had experience working as a data processor in the past, but was now jobless at the moment. After going through a contentious divorce, she ended up moving in with her sister on East 12th Street because she did not want her former spouse to find out where she was living. Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the decades-old cold case that was finally solved. On March 5, 1984, just a few days after Lillie moved into the home, their father, Jack, who was 63 at the time, was waiting for them to pick him up so that they could drive him to a doctor's appointment at 8 a.m. Jack had been waiting for them to pick him up since he had an appointment at the doctor's office. He started to get concerned when neither of them showed up at his house by 8:30, so he decided to head over to their house to check on them. When Jack arrived at the modest residence, the front door was propped open ever so slightly. After entering the building, he made a horrifying discovery once he was inside. The remains of his daughters were found on the ground in the living room, lined up from head to toe. The bullet that had struck Lillie had entered her head. Yleen, on the other hand, had been raped in addition to being stabbed multiple times in the neck, which led the authorities to conclude that Yleen had been the intended victim of the murderer. The killings did not have the appearance of being a conventional acts of random violence. There were no indications that the home had been broken into, and nothing had been taken from it with the exception of Lillie's wallet. On the other hand, Yleen's wallet, which included a number of hundreds of dollars, as well as her precious jewelry inventory, had been left behind. The home appeared to have been searched through in great detail, as though the murderer was hunting for something specific. The police discovered unidentified shoe impressions at the scene, but they did not find any fingerprints that could point them in the direction of a suspect. A neighbor told the authorities that she was awoken at 6 a.m. by two very loud noises that she believes may have been gunshots. Another man who lived in the neighborhood was getting ready to leave for work shortly after 6 a.m. when he observed a man strolling down the street carrying a package that was wrapped in a quilt. The bundle was being carried by the man. He challenged the individual since he suspected that the man was a thief. The man stated that he had just gotten into an argument with his girlfriend and that she had just kicked him out of the house as a result of the argument. On the way out of the door, he hurriedly stuffed all of his possessions into the quilt. The neighbor believed the man after he told him his story, and then the man left. The neighbor arranged a meeting with a sketch artist and participated in the process of developing a composite image of the man whom the neighbor had seen. The fact that Lillie's divorce had just been finalized the Friday before she passed away, along with the fact that she was scared of her ex-husband, made him appear to be a plausible suspect in her death. However, at the time of the murders, he was in the hospital recovering from back surgery. He was not involved in the crimes. Yleen had also been threatened by an on-again, off-again boyfriend, but this boyfriend was able to pass a polygraph test and was not identified by the neighbor who had seen the man near the crime scene in a lineup. Yleen's case was closed. After some time, he was no longer considered a suspect. The investigation was eventually dropped. The Cold Case Unit of the Homicide Division of the Houston Police Department re-examined the evidence from the case, with the expectation that contemporary technology would provide a lead. They were able to construct a DNA profile using the materials from Yleen's rape kit. Because the police were unable to find a profile in CODIS that matched the suspect's description, they were unable to identify the murderer. In 2014, Houston Police Sergeant Paul Motard received a phone call from a defense attorney who informed him that he had a client who could provide information on the murder. The client had been a witness in the case. Because the source of the information was incarcerated at the time in Indiana and would not provide it over the phone, Motard had to fly to that state in order to meet with him in person. According to the source, not long after Yleen and Lillie were killed, a buddy of his showed up at his house in an emotional state and began babbling about two sisters and how difficult it was to kill someone. Out of his vehicle, he grabbed a package that was wrapped in a quilt in the same manner as the one the witness had observed a man carrying close to the location of the incident. After that, the man destroyed a gun in the yard of the informant by smashing it with a hammer and then starting a fire, into which he tossed a woman's wallet, a knife, and other objects. The witness accompanied the man as he disposed of the charred remains produced by the fire in the quill by placing them in a drainage ditch. Edmund Bogard Deegan was identified as the individual who visited the informant at his residence on that particular day. Even though he had served time in state prison for his crimes, Deegan continued to live in the Houston area outside of those confinements. The majority of Deegan's prior convictions included violent robbery. The 30 years that had passed since the murders were mostly shrouded in mystery on how he had spent those years. Has he mostly held a variety of odd jobs in the construction industry, the majority of which do not appear on his employment record? A sketch of the odd man who was observed near the crime scene on the morning of the killings resembled photographs of him that were taken in 1984 very closely. After meeting with the Sergeant Motard, Deegan stated that he was familiar with Yleen Kennedy. In the early 1980s, he ran a wholesale used clothes business, and he met her when she was running her own clothing business. During this time, he was also in the clothing business. He claimed that he last saw her 1 week before she passed away. He asserted that there was never any kind of sexual interaction between the two of them. The DNA profile that was taken from Yleen's rape kit turned out to be a match with the sample that he willingly submitted, and it was found to be a match. On January 14, 2015, Deegan was taken into custody and charged with the capital murder of the Kennedy sisters, whose deaths occurred more than 3 decades earlier. However, even with the DNA evidence, they did not have physical evidence tying Deegan to the death of Lillie, and they believed that tying him for both murders at the same time would raise reasonable doubt. The prosecutors were anxious about going to trial. They made the decision to provide him with a plea bargain in which the sole requirement was for him to admit guilt for Yleen's murder. On the 20th of February in 2017, Deegan entered a guilty plea to the murder of Yleen, for which he was given a sentence of 15 years in prison. Even while this appears like a light punishment for such a terrible offense, the amount of time that Deegan will actually spend behind bars will be even less than what is stated above. Because Deegan was convicted of committing a murder between the years 1977 and 1987, he will be eligible for automatic release from prison in the year 2024, rather than the year 2030 as a result of legislation in Texas that mandates release for certain criminals. As a result of the fact that he had not been released from detention since his arrest in 2015, he became eligible for parole just 5 months after he was sentenced. Jackie Elliott, who is Billy and Yleen's niece, has started a media campaign in which she is pushing members of the community to write letters to the parole board requesting that Deegan not be released. He did not qualify for parole and is still serving his sentence in prison. What do you think of this case? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.